I think I can get through it. Yep. I will, are we on? I'll begin by saying Bonnie was my sister, but many of you knew her far better than I did. She was 4 years older than I. That's an eternity in small kid time, right? So I was just finished the 8th grade when Bonnie went off to the University of Colorado. So I didn't stay in touch enough, wasn't close enough to hear the details of her marriage, her subsequent divorce, her remarriage to Ray Stevens, or her move to Groveland, California, up in the mountains above Yosemite, where she lived and worked for the next 30 years. In about 2005, Ray was diagnosed with lung cancer. He died in March 2007. I should digress and say, Bonnie was next to him the whole way, and for the last 15 months of his life, she blogged about it. She blogged her feelings, she blogged about the treatment, she told people what was happening and why and what they prayed for and what they got. It was an amazing thing. And actually, that's preserved in something called the Internet Archive. You can find all of that preserved online, at least, I don't know forever, but for the immediate future. After his death, Bonnie was really lost. She ended up locking the door of the house, walking away, leaving everything inside, and coming back to Hawaii. She was caring for my parents and building a new life for herself. And we had something in common, I discovered. We both inherited the pack rat gene from our parents. Now, both of us saved, I should probably say hoarded, piles, boxes, closets full of stuff. If you ever went to Bonnie's apartment, you probably saw some of that. Letters sent and received, newspaper clippings, receipts, books, photographs, research notes, things we collected on our own for ourselves, and things we inherited from earlier generations. The challenge, of course, is justifying what would otherwise be just terminal clutter. And Bonnie did it by becoming a genealogist and a historian. All those papers became part of her data. She continued our mother's search for family roots here in Hawaii, and then back across America on to England and Scotland. As already been mentioned here, Bonnie would go all out when getting into something, and that was the same thing as she tackled any mystery of the past, whether tracing family, whether as historian for the Daughters of Hawaii, or doing projects for the History Museum back in Groveland. Part of her reward was the rush of those periodic aha moments. It's what I got as a reporter. Aha! The last fact fits into place, and you know exactly, that explains it. We got it. Bonnie enjoyed that. And the other part of her reward was the opportunity to recite, as you've heard, recite her findings in excruciating detail to any captive audiences she could corral, often repeating far more than once, as I can attest from personal experience, and some of you too. Bonnie privately regretted we were not a more closely knit family. Why can't we act more like a family, she once asked me. But once back in Hawaii, she realized she was home again. She told me, and I think you've recognized, that she relished being in and belonging to a Hawaiian community once again. It was different, she said, and you were part of that, and we thank you. She was by no means perfect. She could be judgmental of others and stubborn in her judgments, even when confronting contrary evidence. So we ran into that once, when after years of tracing our father's Lind family back through generations in Scotland, and she went to Scotland, she visited churches and got the documents and found everything, she talked me into doing one of those DNA tests. Scrape your cheek, send it in, they send you back everybody in the world you're related to. And in this particular test, it was the male line, father to son, back grandfather, so on. But the results came back, there was an unexpected fork in the family tree. The DNA did not lead where her meticulously researched family history said it should. Now, I thought it was simple. As my mother would say, oh, somebody hopped the fence. There was some hanky-panky in the Lynn family several generations back. Not so unusual in Scotland or here. But Bonnie blamed the technology. She said the DNA test must be wrong because they didn't agree with her research. So, at the end of her life, Bonnie left us with another mystery. She must have known for some time that she was ill. But why didn't she reach out to her family and her many friends? I don't have an answer for sure, but I think she did drop a clue. The last time we saw Bonnie before she finally called for help and was hospitalized was to celebrate her 73rd birthday last April. My wife and I had just finished renovating the old house in Kahala where Bonnie and I grew up. And that afternoon we sat on our deck in the shade of the mango trees that were planted when she was born and then when I was born. And Bonnie took the occasion to look at the yard and point out several of the colorful crotons that are still thriving around the edge of the yard and across the front of the house. And she reminded me that those were grown from clippings collected by our Hawaiian grandmother from around the islands. And that launched her on a story of how our grandmother self-diagnosed her own cancer back in the late 1950s and quietly decided she didn't have the money to go to the hospital and seek treatment. So instead, she packed her bags and started the trip of a lifetime. She rode a bus across parts of the mainland she'd never seen, even when she had to ride in the back of the bus because of those southern sensitivities. She traveled to other Pacific islands. She visited Samoa and Fiji. She crisscrossed Hawaii from one end of the state to the other, well, then the territory, seeking out and renewing her ties to family and friends, and finding us those colorful crotons. And when her travels were done, she came home and she passed away. Now, maybe Bonnie was just talking about plants. In retrospect, though, she may have been saying much more, but I guess we won't know. I'll wrap up with what Bonnie said at the end of her blog, Life with Cancer, when she returned to the keyboard just hours after Ray died in March 2007. Give thanks, she said, for the life which touched so many. And then, as she wrote, keep praying. Thank you. Yeah.